My name is Damiano Zito. That's Italian in case anybody cannot interpret the name, right? Okay. I was born in Detroit in 1928 during the start of the Depression. And I was brought up during the Depression, so the clothes I'm wearing are still from the Depression. No, they're not. Yeah, my dad was Leonardo Zito, and my mother was Maria Zito. Both came from Italy. Both came from poverty. I remember my mother saying we used to fight for the breadcrumbs that were in the bread drawer and this kind of thing. So, yeah, you must understand that back then, we really didn't know we were poor. I mean, this is the way it was, and you never thought of anything different because a lot of other people were in the same boat. I remember one day when I was in early grade school, this one kid would bring in deviled egg sandwiches for himself, and all I had was a slice of bread to eat, and man, my mouth would be watering. My dad was a man with a few words. He had a quick temper, and one time we were at Eastern Market, and I was with my brother Mike and me. We were walking down next to the little shops down at Eastern Market. They had poultry shops, they had cheese shops, and this kind of thing. This guy comes out of the store with a rack of chickens, I think it was. He pulled it in front of us and forced my brother Mike and me to step out in the street. By the time we come back on the sidewalk, my dad had this guy by the throat, ready to clobber him. And so he grabbed my dad and said, no, Dad, don't do that. Anyway. And then 13 years old, I worked in a bakery, cooked donuts at night. Mm-hmm. And then about 14, I was building garage doors out of wood. We used to build out of redwood garage doors. And then 15 and 16 and 17, I worked at gas stations. That gave me my mechanical background on working on cars and this kind of thing. Besides that, my dad would buy wrecked cars and repair them during the wintertime to earn extra money for the family and sold them in the springtime and that kind of thing. And so we were all around cars all the time. Well, what happened is I really got to know my brothers and sisters like you people know your brothers and sisters because the war came in and Lucy was a second lieutenant Army nurse over in Europe, and brother Phil was in the Coast Guard, brother Joe was in the Air Force, and then brother Mike was in the infantry, and he got wounded twice over in Okinawa, brother Mike, and I happened to be the oldest one back home, and then my academic acumen was not all that great, so I had to quit. I quit school in the 10th grade. I joined the Maritime, the Merchant Marine, and it was just right after the war. And then brother Anthony was drafted into the Air Force, and brother Jack was drafted into the Army, and then I was back in the Army myself for a couple of years. By the time we came back from our tour duty, they were married and they were gone. So really didn't have much communication among brothers and sisters. And so after that, I came home out of the Army, and my dad was ready to retire. And he had these empty lots here. This house is on all the way from here to the corner was empty lots. And my dad says, I want to build a house. Draw me a house, right? So that's that house next door there. I don't know how to draw a house. Sit down and draw me a house. You're born in America. How come you don't know this stuff? Fortunately, the one class in school that I was pretty good at was mechanical drawing. the only class. That's the only one I got a B, and the rest were D's, right? What happened was, there was a housing boom right after the war, and so there was houses being put in all these suburbs. You know, the GIs are coming home and getting married and building houses. And so I would go out and look at some of these various stages and how these houses are being built. And then I got my hands on a set of plans, housing of some kind, and I looked at that and I said, well, and I sat down and drew the house and took it to the city. He says, well, you don't have enough detail. I'll go back and this, and that. And so I went back and got the detail on it, and then they finally put their stamp on it. And I got married at the exact same time. He moved out of Detroit. I got married, and we had it was a converted home that had a 2-story home that was converted to an upstairs and downstairs. And that's where we moved in when we got married. And it was a 1-bedroom. We were there for 55 to 59. We were there 4 years. And we had 3 kids, 1 bedroom, and one time we had a party, and people sat on the steps going up to this apartment. It was so small. But it gave me the impetus to build a house out here in St. Clair Shores. So it took 2 years to build this house. So that's where that all came from. Craig, Mark, Kenny, Danny, right? Cindy, Jill, Marcy. Well, the girls I named, I think. Dorian and I would name. Bun was Cindy, and Jill Bean was Jill. And Marcy Boo was Boo. Boo Boo. Boo Boo.
Little boo boo.
Little Boo Boo. She was the Uncle Bob of this family. All she did is smile and everybody melts, right?
Make no mistake about it, my sister Marcy was the most precious one in our family. She was always very kind, always very smiley, always very gentle, and she was the baby. I remember playing baseball out in the street one summer afternoon, and I took a hard fall in the street trying to make a catch on a baseball, and I really scraped up my arm quite badly. And I went in the house, and my mom pulled out the first aid kit and sat me down at the table, and she started cleaning it up. And little Marcy runs into the room, big little squirrel ponytail, and so all she said was, "Ah!" And my mom jumped up. "What's the matter? What's the matter?" I'm like, "Mom, I'm gonna friggin' bleed out here." But she had to take care of Marcy.
Raising the boys was easy for me because I did it the way my dad did it. By threats. In the hand, right? Although I don't think I ever hit them. But the boys were easy. When it came to the girls, that was a little tough. Because I started treating the girls like I treated the boys. I think I said, my wife put me up against the wall one time and says, "Don't you treat those girls like that." "Don't you touch those girls like that." Oh. So that was the end of that. So that's why I have 3 spoiled girls.
Raising a family of 7 kids, my dad had the discipline down very well with the first 4 boys. Then he was blessed to have 3 girls. We were in a small house at the time. We had no addition built. The boys had 2 bunk beds, so 4 boys to 1 room, 3 girls to another room. My sister Cindy ended up going to my dad and said, "Dad, I need my own room." So we went to bed one night.
Yeah, we woke up the next morning in the basement next to Craig and Mark's smelly feet. Yeah.
Well, back in the early days of the company that I used to work for, called Automatic Parking Devices, We build parking gates, the gate arms that go up and down in the parking lots, this kind of thing. Well, they needed wooden arms. So what happened was, in order for us to earn extra money when we worked for these companies, my brother Mike and I would bring these sticks of wood home, wooden, 10-foot long sticks. They were 1 by 4 by 10s. And our at that time, the kids were 12 or 13 years old. They did the painting, painted them, put the coats of white paint on them, and striped them. Jill did a lot of striping. So that was to earn extra money. Actually, it paid for a lot of their college because we used to do 50 at a crack. So they learned 12 or 13 years old. They were down there. They wanted to go out and play in the street, but it was tough to get the kids to do this kind of work, right? So things were getting a little loose. So I wrote a covenant. If you dawdle, I will dawdle paying out, or some such thing as that. If you work, I will pay you. And I made a little covenant with some kind of a message on there to give them some more emphasis.
So I look back at our childhood and having 7 kids and how difficult it was to keep everything under control, especially finances when you were a one-income household. One time we were playing baseball in the street, which we did almost every day. And Mrs. Ward's vehicle was parked about 450 feet away, and I broke her rear window. That paycheck went to that. And then I think Dad realized, hey, I got to get all these kids on their way and start their own jobs. So he pretty much helped us get all our own jobs at a young age, painting gate arms and whatnot. So that took a little bit of the cost burden off of us or his finances. Then we get into our adult lives, and he's still generous with helping us out, all of us out. I just to give him a lot of credit for sticking that out. We weren't the least expensive kids to raise, let's put it that way, back in the day.
We had friends that were in the same boat. They had kids and no money. So what we did is for entertainment is that we go to each other's homes, one time here and one time there, and then we play euchre most of the time, or poker. And we did that, actually did that twice a week, Wednesday nights and Saturday nights, yeah. And then Sundays, we would have barbecues outside, and our family barbecues, friends with their families. We'd do it one time here and one time there. But these are all church people, families. They had big families. They had 4 or 5 kids. Marge and Ed Verloove. And there was Jim and Marge O'Brien. Blair and Catherine Gata, right? And there was the Harmons down the street, Paul and Joyce Harmon, and the Bears down the street. How could I forget that? Yeah. The Warners. Oh yeah, a lot of fun.
Their friends that they picked, their family that they picked, was chosen, I think, purposefully by the way he wanted to raise his family. That Christ was there, that his family was there, and that's just been a standard in my life.
I learned early on while I was dating Marcy what a great family he put together and what he installed in his kids with their morals, their work ethic, and his religious faith. Going through with Marcy for 14 months, of which he went through, the religious faith that he installed in her really got her through that tough time. And I learned so much from not only that, but being around the family with the values and so forth. It's definitely something for to be very proud about.
But anyway, I remember at night school I met a fella who worked for a company called Vemco Products. And they made automatic gate sliders there, and at the same time they were making ticket issuing machines for parking lots. So you pull up to a parking lot, you take a ticket out of a machine and go park your car. They were having problems with their time clocks, and since I had a background in time clocks, he says, "Why don't you come and help us? We're having problems with clocks, so you can come and help us repair." So I left the time clock company and went to this company called Vemco Products. We developed the parking industry. We became quite good at it. Matter of fact, we were #1 in the United States as far as parking was concerned. And then my boss left the company, and the money guy took over, and a series of deaths promoted me up the line by attrition. And so I became vice president of that company and a sales manager. And I stayed there for 7 years, and then during that time, it was tough to get a raise out of the boss for anybody, and I had a sales force of about 5 guys, and I couldn't get a raise for them, so I talked the boss into letting them start their own little company to enhance our product's ability to stimulate their sales. So all these 5 salesmen all had their own little companies, and I had, for my end of it, I had International Controls. I had 3 partners at the time. Jerry Hoover, Pierre Kudelka, and Dave Hornack. And what happened then was that it required us to work after our regular jobs to do international controls, shipping and repairing. Eventually I bought them out and became the sole owner of International Controls. In 1980, I started working out of the house at my residence, and actually there's some operators still out in the field from those sales, actually. After a while, I started getting busy, and I needed some help. So my son Mark was just graduating from high school, college rather, and I needed somebody on the inside to answer the phone and promote the business. So he came on board in 1980-81.
So in 1980, I remember Mark graduated from Oakland University, and his dad had approached him and asked him if he would like to come work for him. At the same time, he was also offered a position from Mike Ilitch, making probably significantly more money, but he decided to join his dad. I also remember that he used to say that he would stay in bed until he heard Grandpa coming down the stairs, and when he would hear his feet hit the stairs, he would jump up really quick and run to the desk and act like he was working.
So in 1988, the neighbors were complaining about the trucks pulling up for us for our deliveries and pickups. So we decided to move, and Mark looked around for someplace to move to, and money was tight for both of us because we were trying to get 2 wages out of the kind of work we were doing. So we borrowed money from my brother Phil. We purchased a little white house on the corner on 15 Mile Road in Cordelia. And in order to enhance our income a little bit, we rented the upstairs to my nephew who ran his little business out of there, Roy Saravinsky. Okay, we stayed there for 5 years. So the building was available. We were in the White House for 5 years. We moved into the building next door. And at that time, we start hiring help. And I think the first person we hired was either Fred or Steve. I'm not sure which one was first, but both of them came in about the same time. Steve helped us with the installs, and Fred did the service kind of work. So this is back, now we're talking about 93, 94, that area. And then, so we were in there till 2011, that building. And in order to, when Mark passed, things got a little scary because at that time I was 80. Let's see. I was 84 years old, and the employees here were a little skittish that a company be run by an 84-year-old man. So some of our prime customers were looking at our employees to hire them. And then they're still looking at this old guy trying to run this company. And so at that time, I talked to, well, at that time, Maggie came on board as 50% of the company.
So I started working at International Controls a little over 6 years ago. My father-in-law came and asked me after Mark had died if I would be interested in coming to work at ICE. I was very grateful that he offered, because it was a very difficult time, obviously, for both of us, and it was a way for us to stay connected during that time, and it kept me connected with Mark also.
I had to choose a chief operating officer since I'm getting old. Maggie has limited knowledge of the company at that time. And so it turned out to be Tom Manila.
During the transition of ownership here at International Controls, it was quite an honor to be thought of, to be put in the position, and it's not taken lightly. Between Dom and Mark, this really was their business. This was their life. You couldn't be anywhere without talking about it. It's good having Dom here. He's a stability. He every day that he shows up, and when he shows up, he adds a little bit of life and a little bit of smile to everybody that works here.
I had a lot of confidence in him, a person that was not afraid to take on any kind of job, and he still doesn't. So it turned out he's done a very fantastic job, actually, along with a bunch of fantastic employees. So a company doesn't run well without good employees. There's no question about it.
So I've been working with Uncle Don for 22 years. I started when we were across the street over in the small area in Cordelia before we had the whole back built. Uncle Don and Aunt Doe used to share one desk that Aunt Doe smoked at, and I used to sit right next to him at a smaller desk. So I've been sitting literally right next to him for 22 years, learning everything he's had to offer. He's always been the money man, the bean counter as he calls himself. He's always just been the biggest, kindest hearted, honest. Everyone just thinks highly of him.
I can remember doing electrical jobs for churches, probably losing money on them because he had a soft heart. He taught me a good work ethic. He was a good mentor to me on that aspect. Also, he followed precise plans to make sure that family values were incorporated in everything we did. So, like I said, we may have lost money on the church jobs, but we made a little bit of money on the other jobs. It was actually fun working with him. I did miss working with him when he decided to take up golfing more than working. But the good news was he trusted Mark, his son, and all the rest of us to run the company, and he gave us a lot of freedom to learn our own lessons. But don't think he didn't keep a close eye on us. He still did. It's been a lot of fun. It's, like I said, over 20 years, and looking forward to the next over 20. And I enjoy seeing him 3-4 days a week here, still come into the office.
And here I do now is all I do is look at numbers and report back to the boss. So what happens, the bottom of this story is that you treat all the people well on the way up. So, because when you're on the way down, you're going to get treated the same way. But getting back, did I think it would get this big? No, frankly not. And I can really tell you something else. Since I have a history of how this stuff works across the United States, because when I was with the other company, we had 5 offices across the United States. I believe we have the best company in this whole country, that does this kind of work. I still go to work, and I love it. I love the kind of work. I love to see kids grow into the business, and I don't care whose kids they are, as long as they want to work, right? And grow, and be happy. So it's developed into what we see today. I want to introduce you to my wife, Ann. Well, my first wife passed away 21 years ago, and I stayed single for 8 years and never went out on a date for 8 years. And then in church I saw Ann
going up to Holy Communion.
And the way she was sashaying down that I said, whoa, look out. And so I followed her down to communion. And then after Mass, I said, you know what, I'm going to have to look into that girl. So I got in my car, but I didn't leave the parking lot. I was watching what she was doing, and she was talking to other ladies in the parking lot after Mass. And then I followed her. I stalked her. And turned out she lived in an apartment on 12 Mile Road. And then after a couple of more meetings at Mass, I introduced myself to her, and then finally took her out to breakfast. I didn't want to spend for dinner because, No, her comment was you can't have too many friends. So
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Oh, I thought, well, he's a nice man. He goes to Mass every morning, and he goes to communion, and you can't ever have too many friends, for heaven's sakes. This went on for quite a while.
2 years, actually.
2 years.
Yeah.
We were friends going out to dinner. It was nice.
When I started dating her, I didn't tell the family, but Cindy caught me and looked at me and said, "You're going out with somebody, aren't you?"
So there was a period of time where we would call him to say, hey, Dad, let's go to breakfast, or can you come over to dinner? And his reply was always, oh, but I can't. I'm busy. I'm like, well, what are you doing? I don't know. I am busy. And so this, after the second, third, fourth time, it was like, wow, I wonder what Dad's doing. So we're all at, I think it's Klutz graduation, and we're sitting there talking. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing that you're so busy? He goes, Vaughn, man, I am busy. And he kept saying it, and he kind of, he had a little chuckle to him. I'm like, what are you doing? And he wouldn't even look at me in the face. And I'm like, Dad, did you get yourself a little honey? Well, he
was a 77-year-old that blushed like a 13-year-old. So shortly after that, we met Ann, and she was a very pleasant woman. And I have to say, Ann has made such a huge, significant difference in my dad's life, and we couldn't ask for a better person to bring life back to him.
And then I think she invited us over to her house for Sunday dinner, didn't she?
She probably did, yeah.
And I was a little dubious about joining Don with his family, and this great big family, for goodness sakes. I'm an only child. I had no brothers or sisters. And so went to dinner, and it was so delightful and so enjoyable. And the more I got to know Don's family, the more I just loved them, everyone.
Then I proposed over at
No, and we went for a walk on a Sunday, and we walked. He parked the car in the church parking lot in
St. Paul of the
St.
Cross.
Paul's of the Cross on the lake. So we went
On the
for
lake.
we went for a walk around in that area. It was lovely, and we then came in the front of the buildings, walked on the grass, and it was in front of the church
Yeah, right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
that you proposed.
I said, Ann, would you marry me? And she said, well, okay. Double clicks.
Or words to the effect. But I thought, yes, he's a good man. I see him going to church. See him going to Holy Communion. He's the kind of a husband I want. So there you are.
And then I think I gave her an engagement ring at Blossom Heat. We walked over there and passed under the waterfall there. We gave her the engagement ring.
Under the waterfall?
Well, by the waterfall. The fountain.
Yeah.
Waterfall, fountain, right.
Yeah, there's that covered little area where you can sit
Right.
and
Yeah.
watch the
Yeah,
lake
yeah.
and all of this kind of thing. It was under there that he gave me the engagement ring. Isn't that romantic?
And when we got in front of the well, after the vows were made, they turned us around to the congregation. They said between the two of them, there's 156 years. You people figure out the math.
That's right, you did say that.
So we've been very happy together ever since. And we enjoy each other's company very much.
We've been married 13 years and never had an argument.
Mm-mm.
Can you imagine that? The admonition that I try to follow is one from Christ. And he says, when you look at a person, try to look at that person like you're looking at Jesus. I don't do it all the time, but that always in the back of my mind. That other person is another Christ. And that's the way I try to look at it.
Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts we are about to receive from your bounty. Wait a minute, please.
Although that younger generation just wants to rush right through.
Ron was
saying the prayer here.
If you remember Papa, my dad, when he said grace, they wanted to bless everybody. I blessed the family, the relatives, and the friends.
Okay. And then he says,
Except eat.
when,
He was hungry.
yes, and your mom had made
Let's
something
eat.
he really wanted. No many pocket feelings for you. That's it.
Yes. And souls of faith departed through mercy, Lord, rest in peace. Amen. Thank you, Jesus. All right, now we got it.